Alright, so my name is Steve Crouse. I'm the creative director at Pixel Maniacs, which is a fancy way of saying I was the first designer to work at the company. And now we're I don't know how many exactly. Amoebas, game dev amoebas. So I'm going to be expanding a little bit on what you've heard before with my talk, and I'm going to try to move through it quickly because I only have 20 minutes and I'm probably already running late. So I want to start with production. I'm going to try to talk about all the areas of game development that we have in our company, which is going to be production, marketing, design, art, and engineering. So software engineering. Are all those topics that are of interest to you? Is there anybody who says, or does everybody say, no, we don't need production, or we don't need marketing? Right, then we'll just go through everything, and Hendrik just has to wait, but I'm very sorry. Also, this is going to be very text heavy. I've seen Hendrik's presentation. There's a lot more pictures in that one, so don't worry about that. Expanding on what was just in the talk you just saw, the cost of developing a game can be much higher than you might expect it to be when you're just starting out. So I have a little example here. This is an example of, say you're a student and you're just starting out making your first game and you're a very cheap student. So you say, all right, my cost of living is about, let's say 1,000 euros. This is all German numbers, so if you're international, these might not apply to you, so feel free to adjust for your living situation. Let's say you're a student in Germany, so it costs you about 1,000 euros to live a month. You're a pretty cheap student, that's pretty cool for you. And you might think, okay, this is the amount of money that I need to develop a game for 1 month. That's wrong. You need more than that. This is just to keep you alive and eating and breathing. And this does not cover game development at all. So this account, the cost of you living amounts for about not even half of what you need to develop a game. At 80% on top of that for taxes and insurance, which gets you to 1,800 just to sort of be developing, and you don't even have hardware at this point yet. You don't have nothing. So notice this chunk missing. That's all the other stuff you need to develop games. Rent, hardware, software licenses, age ratings, all the kind of stuff you don't expect when you're starting out, because nobody thinks about legal when you're thinking about designing a game, right? So add another 400 to this, so now we went from 1,000 euros per month that you need to live to 2,200, which is more in a realistic area. You might think, oh shit, what am I gonna do? I can't get 2,200 euros a month. Well, maybe you can. There's a lot of ways to get money as a game developer, even when you're starting out. First, and this is the most common thing you do, is you get contract work. You find somebody else's ideas who can't make them, you make them, they give you money, they publish it, you get money, you do your own stuff. You can get a publisher. So you pitch your idea to the publisher, and by the way, all of these points we're happy to elaborate on if you just want to, after the talk, come up to this talk test. You're going to go to publisher, and you're going to pitch your game idea, and they're going to say either they like it or they don't like it, then they give you money or not, and they help you with marketing or not. It depends on the publisher. But that's usually a really good way to get your game going. What you could also do is get your game funded by video game funds. We have one here in Bavaria, it's called the FFF. They're just waiting to hear about your games. Seriously, they're sitting around waiting to hear about you. Look them up, FFF, if you're from Bavaria, look them up, they really want to hear from you. And they do a really, really great job of just, giving you feedback about your game, and they have that. Chances are, if you live somewhere, which I assume you do, chances are they have video game funding there. Just Google it, honestly. You can look for private investors, which is basically the publisher without experience in publishing. That's a good idea for when you have a publisher who doesn't want to invest money into your game, but wants to just market your game. So combine that with either video game funding or a private investor, you got yourself a game. Crowdfunding, everybody knows it, everybody does it. Not everybody, but a lot of people do it. put your game on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatnot. And self-financing, which works really best if you already have games that make money, or like whatever else you've been doing so far. Or, for example, if you had, it's called Early Access, Steam Early Access, get paid while you develop your game. That's a pretty good deal too. All right, since producers love buzzwords, here's one for you. Just gonna start. Risk mitigation through platform diversification. And it's a pretty fancy way of saying be on as many platforms as you can, and that's a given. There's two benefits of being on all platforms. So the first benefit is obviously the more platforms you're on, the more players you have, the more games you can sell. It's just simple. The second one is, and that's overlooked by a lot of people, especially by newcomers. The more people pay you, the better, because should one of your vendors stop paying you for whatever reason, maybe their supply chain broke down, or like whatever the reason, and believe me, it happens. You might think, like, no, big companies like Sony or Amazon, or this is just examples right now. They wouldn't stop paying you. Diversify your income. That way, if one supplier stops supplying the money, or if one vendor stops paying you, the others will still do that. We at Pixel Maniacs are currently getting money from all but one of these, which is great in case, like I said, if one stops, we still have it going. The worst thing that can happen to you is an empty bank account, even if people owe you money. Because as long as it's not on your account, if you don't have it, it's not yours. Don't count on it. You're technically broke. Marketing. So, as it has been said before many, many times, you're competing against a lot of game developers. So you want to get the name of your game out there. You want to get the word about yourself out there. So a really good way to do that in the game development industry is influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is where you have somebody else talk about your game, somebody who has a lot of followers on social media or whatever, and they will do the legwork for you. So content creators will talk about your game and will market your game for you without you having to do a lot of anything, really. And something really interesting happens inside the human brain when you see your favorite YouTuber play a fun game, is you, as a viewer, have the idea, hey, I should play that game too, because that looks like fun. I'm going to have fun with Markiplier. Which is awesome, because at this point, you really just inceptioned your viewers to think that buying that game was actually their idea when it was your idea the whole time. The way to get YouTubers and Twitchers and whatnot to play your game is send them press keys, send them free copies of your game. Don't overdo it, but don't be stingy. It takes a little bit of experience to figure out what the magic number is. But always keep in mind, big content creators will trickle downwards. So big content creators playing your game will result necessarily in other content creators playing your game, because that's just the way the internet works. But, and a lot of people don't realize this, it also goes the other way around. So a huge amount of smaller content creators will result in the bigger ones noticing and also picking up your game. Not as much as the other way around, but it does happen. Be careful about giving your racing game to somebody who only plays Call of Duty. That's not going to work. It's just going to be a bird key. It's not going to help. And always, and this is, I can't state this enough, they are people. Don't treat them any other way. You're not selling vacuum cleaners door to door. You're trying to market your video game. Treat them well, and they'll treat you well. This goes in hand with PR, is community management. Create a community about your game, around your game. It's a very good idea, because if people like your game, they're going to stick around, they're going to spread the word. But what's even better is spreading the word or creating a community around your brand. So a community around your game is going to be good for the game. A brand-based community is going to be good for all of your games. And It's not, it takes a little bit of work, but you can convert a community around your game into a brand-based community. Where are we at? There we go. It does take time. Community management and social media does take time. Do it. You can keep it low, but it's definitely worth the work. We at Pixel Maniacs, we have a semi-regular dev streams that we host on Twitch. And every Thursday, I think there's one going right now, we have dev talk shows on Twitch as well, which is a great opportunity for us to keep in touch with other devs and other people from the industry, and also a great opportunity for us to connect with our community. So, design. Any designers in here? Game designers, level designers? I have a few. So, please, and this is going to be going through the rest of the talk. Iterate on everything. Iterate on design. And the first step of every design, and I know you don't want to hear it, write a game design document. Every designer hates it. The further you get into it, the more you do it, the less you hate it. As long as you don't have a GDD, as long as you don't have your idea written on a piece of paper, you do not have your idea. If you don't have a GDD, I can ask you 15 questions and you can answer 2 of them, I guarantee. And the good thing about a GDD is if somebody asks you 15 questions about your game, you just hand them the GDD and say, read it. And then probably add the answers that were not in the GDD. You are not going to get it right, and your GDD is never going to be complete. Know that. Your GDD is a living document, it's alive, it's going to be growing for the entire duration of the game, of the development, and that's a good thing. Everything that comes into your head, everything you think this might belong into the GDD belongs into the GDD. Make sure to have a playable prototype really early on. This is really important because there's no other way to know if a mechanic is going to work. And this is a great way to know if a mechanic might result in an interesting dynamic. So definitely prototype as quickly as possible. We're going to have a little bit more about that in a second. Game jams are a really good idea to do. Like, they're really good practice for iterative design and the entire iterative game development process. And to quote my 6th grade Marvel coloring book, 3rd grade, use that part of your pencil a lot. Don't be afraid to just remove ideas, remove stuff from your GDD, from your game, from your art, no matter what it is. It's okay to delete stuff or start over. It helps. Prototype. Like I said, prototype early, prototype often, and experiment a lot in prototyping. The whole point of prototyping is to be really fast at it. And the fastest method to do that might be super weird. Little example here, to prototype the town for our upcoming game, Escape the Loop. Our intern had a really interesting idea. He thought, I could either create a town prototyping tool inside Unity. Then he thought, well, the folks over at Colossal Order basically already did that. So what he did is he prototyped the entire town in City Skylines, which is a game. And then he took that design and blocked that out in Unity. And that was super quick. Instead of like taking days to just get the system for the town working, he had the entire layout prototyped in, I think, about 3 days. And he had like 5 layouts. So that's definitely something to consider. Does not at all have to be anything near your finished game. And it does not have to be inside your engine either. Another example is Breath of the Wild. I don't know if you saw the GDC talk, I think from last year, from 17 it was. You have a GDC 2017 teacher now. Was that last year? I think it was last year. They prototyped Breath of the Wild in 2D, in like the old NES style Zelda. So like just the mechanics they did in 2D as a proof of concept, and then they ported the whole thing into 3D only when they figured out, okay, this is going to work, this is going to be fun. They took the whole thing and put it into 3D. So that's great prototyping right there. Art? Any artists? Right? Again, iterate on your artwork, iterate on your workflow, and please, please, please do not have a destructive workflow. So always save your splines, save your NURBs, save your curves, save PSDs. I promise you, if you're writing your own engine, you can do it yourself. I promise you, Unity will convert these files into like readable files in the end at build time. So PSDs will be converted into PNGs. Save the PSDs. I know it will screw up your Git. Your Git will be like 10 times the size. It's worth it though, because you can just go back and you can change things and you can redo everything. Iterate on your artwork. Start really, really crude. Like start with a cube, seriously, and then only add more detail as you need it. Right? Sometimes you'll find out that you don't even need like more detailed artwork. Sometimes the cube will be perfectly fine for what you need in your game, and you're going to have saved a lot of time and a lot of money, and everybody's going to be happy. And this applies to every art form, whether it be 2D art, 3D art, sound design, animation design, everything. Learn shader code. And this might be more for the technical artist, but at least one of you in your company or in your team should know how to write shaders. You might say, I don't need it, I have the standard shaders in Unity, that's all right, that's okay. No, probably not. Like, the further you get into game development, you're gonna need them. It could be something as simple as saving performance while retaining the same level or the same artistic purpose of the material. Custom effects will dramatically increase your production value, and we're going to have an example of that in just a second. And some things can just not be done with regular shaders. For example, in Can't Drive This, we wrote a customization shader for our vehicles, so players could customize their cars. And with the standard shader, it would just not have been possible in that way. And if you don't want to learn shader coding because you say, oh, I don't like to write code, then get like a node-based shader editor. I think there's one integrated into Unreal, if I'm not mistaken, I might be. Unity has a great asset called Amplified Shader Editor. Use these things. Please, please don't underestimate the importance of writing your own shaders. There's a few examples of what shaders can do. Like this is a very abstract example. I don't know what you would use that for, but it looks pretty cool. This is like one of the custom effects that I was talking about. This can give you great, like, just improve your art style so much. Like if that's the thing you're going for. Sometimes you just need like custom shaders to do like occlusion-based effects. You can even fake physics with shaders. I mean, let the graphics card do the hard work. Why not? And this is the aforementioned customization shader for the cars in our Can't Drive This. Polish your look. This is super, super important because the look of your game can kill it dead in its tracks before anybody ever plays it. Because nobody sees your mechanics, nobody sees your awesome game design, and nobody sees your great music and your sound design or whatnot on screenshots. Nobody. And if your first screenshot sucks, nobody's gonna buy your game, and you're gonna hate yourself for not polishing your art. Use coherent art style. This is don't have hyper-realistic characters sitting in tuned cars. It's just it feels weird, and it's gonna screw up your whole game. Except if you pull it off correctly. I'm not saying that you can't pull it off. You might be able to. Try to be coherent. Use image effects. Like there's a ton of great image effects, like standard image effects, motion blur, curves correction, color correction, depth of field. I'm not saying that all of these apply to your game. Some of them do. Color correction definitely does, and it adds instant production value. I'm going to say 99% of the time, color correction will be necessary for your game. And avoid the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley, for those of you who don't know, is this. She looks super weird, doesn't she? That's because she's too realistic and not realistic enough at the same time. So there's this curve. This is humans, okay? So the more human-like something looks, the more likable it becomes. Except for when it becomes, like when it gets to this weird spot in the middle where there's this huge dip. So that same thing happens with video game. With video game look, like this looks just wrong. This is I mean, I could list, everybody here could list like a million things that's wrong with this screenshot. But this is for the exact same reason. Namely, it's too realistic, but not realistic enough. It's right smack dab in the middle of this uncanny valley. If you can't make your game go to the right-hand side of this curve, go left. Because that's just shit. All right, last topic. I'm almost on time. We still have like 5 minutes? Is that good? All right, engineering. So this is software engineering right here. Again, iterate on your code as well as on everything else. At least slightly plan your feature set ahead. Don't just start writing code randomly, just random letters, and then expect everything to work. You should know where your code is going to go at the end, like at least the direction of where it's going to go. All right. Have your logic work as early as you humanly can. So as soon as you start coding, it should already work, basically, right? And then once you get that working, you can just pile on features onto that, like with everything else. And at some point, you're going to realize, oh, this is enough. I don't need to have any more experience points. And sort your features. The more difficult and the more uncertain you are that you're going to be able to implement a feature, do that first, and then go to the easier parts of your code or parts of your game. And don't be afraid to refactor, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there's a healthy middle between those two. You should always make sure that your code is clean and your code is working nicely, but if you pile stuff on top of each other, sometimes it will not work out. Fix it if it needs fixing. Abstract your engine. I promise I'm almost done. Use prefabs as much as possible. If you change it once, you change it everywhere. That's great. It saves you a shitload of time. Extend your engine, like anything you can think of that's not already in your engine, and you think it might save you time having it. Do it. Make it yourself. Find an asset. Whatever. Somebody probably already did it. If not, do it yourself. And think outside the engine. For example, for Chromagun, we created a web-based map editor, which allowed us to just quickly paint maps in a 2D environment. And then that exported to JSON, which we imported into Unity, filled that with prefabs, and then we got a working map, and that saved us at least hundreds of hours. Like literally, that would have made our process 10, 20, 30 times more efficient. And that's the end of the talk. Thank you very much. Any questions? Oh no, we're not going to do that question thing.
No, we're actually doing that. Change of plans.
Change of plans? All right.
And we have a microphone, so if anyone wants to use it, please.
All right, any questions?